Cursed by the Gold Gods in Bethany. We are four souls destined to review the 1001 movies,
albums,
foods, songs,
and TV shows you must consume before you die. Until then, we are the Immortals. And this is episode 128.
All right.
Woo!
Good. It's a big number.
Bigger than the last one.
It is bigger than the last number.
I'm Austin.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Lee.
And Pedro's, of course, banned from this episode until he gets his shit together.
That seems right.
He'll be back in probably 2 episodes.
You don't want to know what he did.
We talked about it. Blank look on Sarah's
Wait, we
face.
did?
So many things we brought up.
Wow, I'm very
You
tired.
should listen to the show.
No.
That's fair. Anywho, this week we are reviewing the 654th entries in all of these books, and they are the following things. The movie is The Jerk.
The album is Moss Side Story by Barry Adamson.
The food is Greek oregano?
And the TV show is QI. But before we get into our first topic, we like to start off with a little segment called Off the List. We're just going to talk about what we've watched since the last episode that is not on any of the lists that we're going to cover. And let's start with Lee. What have you been watching lately?
I finally caught up on season 2 of The Good Place, so I'm ready for season 3's premiere, which is sometime soon. The first few minutes of season 3 have been released online, and I haven't watched it yet, but I'm debating it.
I have also held off on watching it without giving any spoilers away, because this is actually one of the rare sitcoms that has multiple twists per season. In fact,
It's so good.
Almost every episode of season 1 felt like it had a new layer in the story. What did you think of season 2 over season 1?
I liked where it went. I thought it was an interesting direction, especially because of how season 1 ends. I really liked what they did with it, and I'm very excited to see what they do in season 3.
For those of you who don't know, The Good Place is a show created by Mike Schur, who also created Parks and Rec and part of The Office. It is a story of a woman played by Kristen Bell who goes to the Good Place, a heaven-like equivalent run by Ted Danson, and she is a terrible person who was there by accident. And it's her trying to become a good person and not go to the bad place.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your first day in the afterlife. You were all, simply put, good people. But how do we know that you were good? How are we sure? During your time on Earth, every one of your actions had a positive or a negative value, depending on how much good or bad that action put into the universe. Every sandwich you ate, every time you bought a magazine, every single thing you did had an effect that rippled out over time and ultimately created some amount of good or bad. You know how some people pull into the breakdown lane when there's traffic and they think to themselves, who cares? No one's watching. We were watching. Surprise.
It's a very important show.
It's really good.
It's so good.
I'm very excited for season 3, and luckily I have the Good Place podcast, which has been filling that void, which is also a great show that you should listen to after listening to our episodes.
Yeah.
We're top priority.
Yeah.
Super well-produced
Number 1.
NBC podcast hosted by Mark Evan Jackson. Second priority.
Boo.
Anywho, speaking of well-produced things, Sarah, what have you watched lately?
I've been watching a lot of Succession, which is HBO's new-ish. I mean, it came out
This summer.
Well, yeah, this summer. Family drama about the succession issues in a sort of company family, a media company family that doesn't not have the exact same brother-sister makeup of the Trump family. It isn't not about how a patriarch's mental decline is causing warring between his children, who happen to be 2 brothers and a sister, and a sister's husband who's kind of a dope. But no, the Trump parallels aside, I resisted watching this for a long time because it looked, the way it's advertised and the way it is are totally different. It is advertised as another, serious, white people with money drama, which I was like, there is no part of me that wants to watch another one of those. That sounds miserable. it's actually not that. It's really funny. It's almost like if everybody on Veep was related, with just like a tad more grounding in reality, but really just a tad.
And the creator of the show, Jesse Armstrong, known for co-creating Peep Show, one of the best sitcoms of all time, and he co-created a show that we covered on this podcast, Fresh Meat.
Yeah, which is, I love.
But he's also a major writer on Veep, and did also a classic Black Mirror episode.
But it's a really good show. I'm obsessed with it.
Is that new one with Brendan Fraser in it?
No. This one has Brian Cox and Kieran Culkin. Brendan Fraser is in...
okay.
Yeah, it's like...
Brendan Fraser's in Trust, the FX miniseries.
That's what I was thinking.
About the Gettys. And I'm in the middle of that one. Brendan Fraser's amazing in it.
Yeah. I just don't understand how HBO managed to market Succession the way they did instead of marketing it as what it is, which is, like, great and funny. Like, literally just, like, dumb stuff. Like, they're Irish, and so the kids, all have sort of interesting names, but the daughter's name is Siobhan, but her nickname is Shiv. And just, like, no one comments on this. It's just true. There's a lot of good. There's just a lot of good. I'm a big fan.
I like that Kieran Culkin in it is essentially just playing his Scott Pilgrim character of Wallace, but, like, more evil.
Yeah, it's like a show where, like, the Kieran Culkin character is the only person who lives in reality, and he's just sort of, like, watching everything around him going, oh, this is a shit show. Oh, we're just in a shit show now. Cool. It's a lot of fun.
I picked for off the list is another BBC show. It is called Upstart Crow. It stars David Mitchell, who was one of the leads of Peep Show and also a regular contributor to the show we're going to cover today. It is a very silly show by one of the creators of Black Adler, a show we also cover in this podcast, that is just a sitcom about William Shakespeare in his early days. And season 3 started. It remains just one of the funniest, wittiest shows that is a wonderful, like, satire around Shakespearean times, while also being incredibly silly and witty.
You know my dream.
To be recognised now and for all time as indisputably the greatest writer that ever lived, and to buy the second biggest house in Stratford.
Exactly. That's it, in a nutshell.
In a nutshell? What does that mean?
Oh, 'tis just one of the numerous inspired phrases which I am wont to coin, and which I'm confident will enter the common idiom.
Well, good luck with it in a nutshell, because I think it's stupid. I mean, you couldn't really get anything at all inside a nutshell, because they're very, very small, and also full of nut. Close in the name.
Your observations, Bottom, are neither here nor there.
Is that another one?
Yes, just invented it. When it comes to language, the world's mine oyster. In fact, I'm so clever I could end up with too much of a good thing.
Maybe you should stop now.
Can't. They just pop up all of a sudden. But give the devil his due. There's method in my madness.
Really, stop it.
Why? 'Tis a foregone conclusion that they'll leave you bedazzled and in stitches, and before long you'll be demanding more with bated breath.
The world's your oyster. Why would that be a good thing?
The season premiere was all about him finally getting around to writing A Midsummer Night's Dream. And the way it incorporates so many things at once, but also putting that play in the context of the Me Too movement, where within the first few minutes of the season, he has the main actress on the show, a woman who wants to be an actress, but they won't let her because only men can be actors, who's played by... What's her actual name on Game of Thrones? It's Theon's sister.
In the book, her name is Asha. In the show, her name is Yara.
There we go.
Yeah.
She's very silly, and she just kind of reads the first draft of Midsummer's and goes, so at one point you just have a woman being drugged and forced to have sex with someone she doesn't want to. What's that about? And you just watch Shakespeare's eyes go very wide and go, oh, I did not see this coming. And they just argue consent laws in Midsummer for about 5 minutes. It's very, very funny. Highly recommend Upstart Crow. Seasons 1 and 2 are currently on BritBox.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, now it's time for things that are available legally in America.
Yeah.
Beginning with The Jerk.
In the history of motion pictures, only a select few performers have become immortalized by the roles they have portrayed. Consider the Vamp, the Champ, the Tramp. And now the most perfect casting of all, Steve Martin, the Jerk.
It was never easy for me. I was born a poor black child.
The Jerk is the 1979 comedy film directed by Carl Reiner and starring Steve Martin, who also co-wrote the movie. It is about a rather dumb person. I mean, played by Steve Martin. He grew up as a poor black child and found out at too late of an age that he was adopted and decided to make his way in the world.
And let's be clear, no one ever lied to Steve Martin about the fact that he was adopted. He just didn't figure it out.
Right. Which is weirdly actually the same beginning as the film Elf.
I've never seen Elf.
That's crazy.
It is the beginning of Elf.
Yeah. Will Ferrell's very surprised to learn that he's not biologically an elf.
Yeah.
Anywho, he finds out that he's adopted and decides to make his way in the world and wants to go to St. Louis because that's where he heard music for the first time that he can actually tap his feet to. And he goes off on a series of odd misadventures of him working at a carnival, him working at a gas station, becoming insanely rich and insanely poor.
Yep.
It is one of those kind of comedy classics, partly because it was the big cinematic debut of sorts of Steve Martin, who at that point I think just had some smaller cameos and such, and obviously reoccurring on SNL. I have seen this movie a bunch as a kid, first time watching it now, but if I understand it, it's both of your guys' first time watching it.
Yep.
Let's start with Lee. Lee, what did you think of The Jerk?
I adore Steve Martin. He is one of those people that I have a weird crush on, and I've had a weird crush on him for many, many years. I did not like this movie.
Aww.
It was dumb. It wasn't funny. And I like dumb. I not even 20 minutes ago, I was watching a Vine compilation on YouTube. I like dumb funny. This was just
Vine compilations
dumb.
are good stuff.
What? No. I'm going to defend The Jerk. I'm not going to defend Vine.
I'm going to defend both.
All right.
I miss Vine.
Vine was amazing.
I think we'll kind of open up the discussion of this film because it's a very, very odd film
dumb.
In a way because it is very dumb, and I think what sets it apart from Will Ferrell comedy is Will Ferrell has a very distinct Will Ferrell character. He is an overgrown man-child,
right?
And that's who he plays, sort of variety. He's the overgrown man-child doing basketball, doing race car, yada yada. I think the idea of Haven Johnson is so hard to pin down that even though the phrase "the jerk" doesn't really apply to him,
it's actually a really weird. I think the jerk must have evolved in usage because it really,
I think so,
is not the correct word.
They use it more as an asshole,
but an asshole where it's primarily a dumb asshole, not a mean-spirited asshole.
Correct.
Which is not all what the word means to me.
So I think this character, it is so weird. I mean, they never made a sequel to this movie because I almost don't know how you can write any additional scenes for this character because he's so the jokes apply to him just because how well Steve Martin pulls them off. You know what I mean? I don't know how to define how stupid this person is. Did you get the trouble, Sarah?
Right. No, he's stupid, but he's genuine, right? He's very much the sort of deer in the headlights, experiencing life for the first time type of character. Honestly, though, I don't know that I spent a lot of time trying to pin down who Steve Martin's character was. This movie is a series of SNL skits. Many of them are hilarious. Some of them are not. The idea of this movie having plot is a stretch. And it's funny, when I was a kid, my family we were big Steve Martin fans. I think I mostly knew him from his Muppets appearances. He's in the Muppet movie.
Amazing. And the Muppet Show.
And the Muppet, and I knew all that. And I don't know, we watched a lot of dumb comedies with jokes that would have gone over my head. And for some reason this was not one of them. And I don't know why, because when I was 8, this would have been the funniest movie I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I would not have gotten any of the sex jokes, of which there are a lot. But it's the little things in this movie. When he's being shot at, because someone's trying to assassinate him, and the assassin just keeps hitting stacks of cans, because he works at a gas station, there's a lot of stacks of cans, and Steve Martin's just like, he just hates those cans! And I love it so much. And just, like, dumb stuff. Like, there's a scene, and I don't remember what was happening in this scene, or why it mattered, or if there was any plot, but there's a scene where they're at a little amusement park, and there's a kid on a little, one of those little stupid trains for little kids, and Steve Martin has to chase after him on the chain. And the kid's shirt just says, "Holy shit!" on both the front and the back for no reason. And it's just dumb. And I liked it. It
is such a, like, you mentioned the assassin with the cans.
So good.
I think of all the SNL sketches that kind of connect this film together very, very loosely. That is my favorite because it begins with Steve Martin's character being so excited that he's listed in the Yellow Pages. That's how you really make it.
Right.
Cut abruptly to an insane person deciding, well, I'm going to murder somebody, opens up the Yellow Pages, but touches his name, and then starts to, like, shoot up the gas station. He also randomly comes back as a PI.
It did not, which makes no sense. I love it. Yeah, I thought I'd missed something when he came back, and then I was like, oh no, I didn't. That's just
a PI now.
Yeah.
So, like, it is...
I feel like the more I talk about this movie, the lower my rating is going to become, despite enjoying it.
Because it is so stupid.
Oh, yeah.
It's not good, you guys.
No, but I will say this. It is Steve Martin doing his Steve Martin thing for, like, a very sustained period of time. I never hate him. Even when the jokes are dumb and they don't, like, he wants them to work. And his physical comedy is so funny. And his delivery is so funny that, like, I understand why this movie is on the list because it's just Steve Martin being Steve Martin, wall to wall.
So, it's also, like, a major, like, debut for Carl Reiner. Carl Reiner, I think most people first knew of him as a comedian alongside Mel Brooks. They did a lot of, like, famous duo things together, including the very funny 2,000-Year-Old Man sketches. He co-created The Dick Van Dyke Show, and also acted on that as the TV show Boss. But, like, the jerk... I was like, comedies are kind of harder to review, I feel, than dramas. It is a movie that I did laugh at consistently for 95 minutes. But I also think, like, it is also too long, because it is just too stupid to sustain. Lee, were there any parts that did, like, work for you, or was it just, like, cringe-worthy the whole time?
I want to say I chuckled at the dog's name.
The dogs are a shithead!
Like, because I grew up with dogs, and there have been many times where one of them got out and he couldn't remember its name at that point in time, so he just shouted whatever you could, and I'm sure shithead came out, so that was like a nice little callback to my childhood. But, like, for overall, it was really disjointed. It wasn't even cohesive from, like, one skit to the next.
Nope.
And one skit, Steve Martin would be super dumb, and the next one, he's kind of dumb, but he's not as dumb as before. And then in the next one, he's even dumber, which is disappointing because a few years earlier, Monty Python and the Holy Grail came out, and that is basically one long sketch movie, and it's really good.
It is.
And funny.
I think Holy Grail has the benefit of, like, they actually are going for a goal. Like, having them go for the Grail makes the movie feel a bit more like a road trip movie, where, you know, everywhere you stop, it's a different kind of dumb thing that's going on. This is just so oddly meandering, and even though it is bookended with him homeless, saying, you know, I was a poor man, then became rich, and then became poor, that's really not enough. And I actually found the scenes with him being, like, insanely wealthy not as strong as him struggling, because when he is so poor, it just kind of works better because he doesn't think about himself as poor. Like, when he was given a place to live at the gas station, before recognizing he's being offered the back closet, he was already settled down in the bathroom. And he started mapping out, like, well, if I take out this wall, then I have a really large kitchen area here. Where I have the sink here in the bathroom. This can lead the way. This is the flow of the room for guests to come in. Incredibly dumb thing that Steve Martin pulls off, because if you just give Steve Martin a dumb premise and don't cut the camera, he's going to make it work, weirdly enough. And I think that's very endearing. I think that the character works as a dumb underdog. And when he is succeeding, there's still a lot of funny ideas. I love the idea that next to his giant tennis court, instead of a water cooler, it's 2 different things of wine. And that kind of adds to his way of seeing the world. But when the world sees him as a success, that is very confusing of how the world actually works anymore. And they start to crumble. What do you think, Sarah?
I mean, look, it's just a dumb movie. I don't, it. There are a couple of things about it, but here's what I will say about it. The only thing I will give it credit for, in terms of being genuinely interesting, is that I do think the movie never punches down, weirdly. And you think that it will, because why wouldn't it? But it doesn't. Even in its racial politics, although Steve Martin does use the N-word at the end of the movie, which is awkward, he uses it in a scene where he's punching racists in the face. So while we wouldn't use it, we would never put it on screen now, it's hard to get too worked up about it. Mm-hmm. But for a movie that starts with a white guy saying, "I was born a young black child."
Poor black child.
A poor black child, which is, I was just like, oh, this is a bad thing. It doesn't punch down. It's kind of, in its way, remarkably wholesome in its humor. There's a lot of sex jokes, but it's not about how women are gross, or, I don't know. In that way, it's a weirdly wholesome movie.
The movie is at its meanest when he is essentially accidentally dating this woman who took his virginity at the carnival. This woman who rides bikes through flaming, hoops of fire. Her name is Patty.
Yep.
She is so unbelievably mean to him. She just frequently punches him in the gut and attacks him. There are a couple jokes at her expense, but mostly because she is just a one-dimensional monster person. And I'm not saying that the movie does much better by its actual female lead, played by the wonderful Bernadette Peters. But, I don't know. I would have liked to have Bernadette Peters have some more, jokes to herself.
Although she is very funny in the scenes that she's in. Yeah.
But
her voice is just... It's funny in and of itself. Not because, you're laughing at her, but just because everything said in her particular high-pitched sing-songy voice is just a little bit funnier.
And they do sing the delightful "Tonight You Belong to Me."
It's true.
Which is very charming.
Okay. It was adorable. It was really sweet. I had no idea what the fuck was happening.
Oh, no, I have no idea what happens in that scene.
Because the scene beforehand, she leaves looking all sad at him, and then the next thing I know, they're on the beach singing a song together. What the fuck happened in between?
All I'm saying is that this movie is better than Forrest Gump and has approximately the same plot. It's just a dumb guy going through life and encountering other people, and their plots revolve around him, and he remains sort of, separate from it. The point is, Forrest Gump is bad.
No.
I don't need your sass.
I don't really get why she left him. While it is very funny that he has to read a note that was covered in bathwater and he can't read why she dumped him.
Oh, yes, another good gag.
But
again, there is no reason for it. We don't know.
No. I agree with you, Lee, entirely. I think that, though, I'm not mad because I mostly liked the jokes. But yeah, no, it's just an episode of SNL. Just, with one character instead of a bunch.
I think it's time for
Henges.
I'm going to give this 4 hinges because it hit the exact amount of laughs per second ratio that makes me ignore all the stupid parts.
I'm going to give it 3.7 because I also laughed a lot, but also it doesn't make any sense. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm going to give it a 2.
That's fair. I think all of those answers are correct.
I just expect more out of my comedies than that.
Oh, no, that makes sense.
And that is completely fair. I think it's interesting that this film isn't as popular now with like a new generation than it was with the last.
No, I understand why. It is very racially insensitive in a couple of places.
Yeah, no, that's why. It's because although I think that the racial humor, all in all, like, despite being racially insensitive, like, cut short of racist, yeah, no, it doesn't age well. You have to be a little forgiving to be okay with it.
Yeah.
All right, now it is time for the album segment. Lee, what did we hear this week?
This week we listened to Moss Side Story by Barry Adamson. Side Story was released in 1989. It is the first album for Barry Adamson first album for a musician who doesn't really do traditional music. This is a concept album, and it is a fantastic concept album. I'm always a sucker for concept albums, and this one is a great example of it. So cool.
I agree completely. Let's hear the pitch for what the concept album is.
So the concept album is the film score to a film noir that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and it's such a brilliant, awesome idea because noir films are this perfect vessel for embracing archetypes and using kind of cool style on some familiar topics. And to have that to be done just musically is so cool.
And you really get a sense of like drama, maybe not exact sense of plot, but you get like there's drama here and there's like it's a little bit more calm here, and then the femme fatale walks in here. Like it was really cool because you as someone who has studied film noir, listening to this, you could still pick up those very traditional tropes, even though it was just an album.
Absolutely, and it has it goes and it follows a narrative that isn't there, right? You have kind of the allure of the femme fatale. You have kind of the jail sequence of sorts, which is in a lot of film noir. It's awesome, and sometimes it does exact kind of riffs on it. I really loved the track Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which takes the theme from that TV show and adds it into kind of a new era that's really catchy and really still fits the intention of the original theme and what the whole album's going for.
Yeah, that was one that I really enjoyed a lot.
What else has this guy done? I never even heard of this album before.
He does a lot of just really cool experimental things. Like he did the film score for Lost Highway by David Lynch.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah. Barry Adamson also did a really interesting, I'm sure, and a friend and fan of the podcast, Sam, will be interested. He did a Depeche Mode remix of one of their songs, which I will probably listen to eventually.
Who is Depeche?
Depeche Mode?
Yeah.
Oh, honey, they're a band.
Okay. Getting some exasperated gestures from Sarah right now.
I mean, yeah.
Personal Jesus is probably the one you would recognize by them.
Maybe. I'm gonna write this down to look later.
Yeah. It's been used in commercials and things like that.
So, is there anything do you think it would take away from the success of this album if it was to a score? Because I kind of love it as its own thing. I mean, put to a film. If this score was actually adapted.
That is a great question, and I don't think I would. I do like this album as a concept album. I think it's really interesting, and it succeeds 100%. I do wish there was a little bit more, and this may have come out with the original album when it was published back in the late 80s. They may have had like a songbook or something that like kind of was more of a narrative, but I wish there was a bit more lore behind it. Like I wish there was, I don't know, even if he just would have like leaned into the fakeness of it. Like this is from a fake movie that never existed by a fake director starring fake people. Like I would have loved that. But other than that, I think it succeeds as a concept album, and I don't think it would work I'm sure it would work as a film score. It's just more successful as a concept album.
And I think that's what makes it so curious, because if it was a film, if it was turned into a film, then the director would become the auteur. With this, it really has Barry Adamson being the one to drive the creative and stylistic intent of it all.
Agreed, yeah.
It was awesome. I never heard of this before, and even when we were, introducing it last episode, we just kept comparing it to Redwall, because what we thought about when we heard the phrase Moss Side Story. And it's something way cooler than we ever expected.
It is very cool, and I highly recommend it, because I think at this point we're the only two people who have actually listened to this album. It is very difficult to find. It is very difficult to find any information on it. My Wikipedia page is like barely a paragraph on it, so it was hard to do research. But more people should listen to it because it's great.
This was the first album, because I typically listen to the albums on YouTube, because I'm a heathen. It was not even on YouTube. I had to actually open up this newfangled service called Spotify, which had the whole album on it.
Yes, it is on Spotify.
I didn't use my account. I don't have an account. I had to use theirs. It's okay. I have Filmstruck. That's what the cool kids have subscriptions to, right?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, I think it's time for
Henges.
What would you give it?
I would give this album probably a 4.5. It's really great, and it's really neat and interesting. And again, I'm a sucker for concept albums, so.
I give this a 4.6. This was awesome, and I mean, it's a gimmick aimed right for me of a fake film score of a genre you like.
I was just wondering, have any of you guys ever heard the Radiohead song Exit, Music for a Film? It reminds me of what you're talking about here. It's sort of like, it's a different kind of concept, but it was a song that Radiohead put together, which is one of my favorite Radiohead songs, it was meant to go as soundtrack for a movie that already existed, that already had a soundtrack, and Radiohead was like, but I love this movie, and I want to make this song as like what should have been the credits music for this movie.
Do you know what the movie is?
Romeo plus Juliet.
Oh. Yeah.
Not one of my favorite movies. I'm not a crazy person. I do like the movie. The song is one of the great Radiohead songs.
I now get why you held off saying that.
Uh-huh.
Because I hate that movie.
I know you do. I know you do. Our first fight is about this.
It's true.
It was a very serious fight.
Didn't know we were in a fight till halfway through it.
Well, it was pretty obvious if you paid attention.
It was about Romeo plus Juliet, and it was impossible to know.
Okay.
Anywho, we're doing great.
We're doing awesome.
Love you, honey.
Yeah.
Now it's time for the food segment.
So, the food is Greek oregano, which at first I looked it up, and I was like, oh, well, that's weird, because Greek oregano, I don't know what they meant, because it's the same as regular oregano, which it is. Apparently, the issue is that sometimes people who are cheap call marjoram oregano, because it tastes sort of the same, but it isn't the same, but it's a related plant. And only some oregano is really oregano. Whatever. I have real oregano. Mediterranean oregano. It is dried. My farmer's market did not have fresh oregano. But Greek oregano is just oregano. It's just real oregano and not real oregano.
Well, I went to the farmer's market to buy some oregano and they gave me weed and I was very upset.
But yeah, there's oregano here. I don't know, Austin, do you want to eat it? I mean, you know what oregano tastes like, but it's you, so maybe you don't.
I mean, it's the point of the show to
eat it.
Yeah.
It's what makes pizza taste good.
It tastes like pizza.
It's missing the pizza part, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just pizza. Which is sort of sad because I feel like oregano is in theory should be a more versatile spice, but it's so much pizza. Just what makes pizza sauce, and they keep the dried stuff in like one of those little cans at the pizza shop, so it just tastes like that. I actually don't like the taste of oregano all that much. Like, it's fine, but
it's a good like settler, you know. Like it's like we have other flavors that like really kind of like big and like takes over the whole thing. This is a good like bring it down a little bit and add. It's a good mixture flavor, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I regularly, instead of using oregano, just use like an Italian seasoning blend, which includes like thyme and stuff, and I always feel like oregano is still like the primary flavor. So, you know, it's powerful that way. It's oregano. I don't know how the hell I'm supposed to rate oregano.
It's inoffensive. No one has ever asked you to not put oregano on. Like, don't take it off.
Right, yeah, I don't know anyone who's ever like hated oregano.
Right.
That's not a reasonable thing. It's fine. I don't know, henge. It gets a 3. It's oregano. I don't know.
I was also going to give it a 3. That's oregano.
Yeah, it's oregano. I don't know what... It's oregano. Has anyone not had oregano?
Do you have any history of oregano?
No. Other than the margarine thing that apparently some people like lie.
Lasting philosophies of oregano.
No, it's just oregano.
Major use of oregano in pop culture.
Pizza.
Okay. All right, now it's time for the TV show segment. This week, we review the show QI.
Yeah.
QI is a British quiz show, although the
quiz show?
The emphasis is definitely more on the show than the quiz part.
Yes.
It's a panel show.
It's a panel
show, yes.
It has been around since 2003. It is a show devoted to things that are quite interesting. That's where the QI comes from. It is a show that was hosted by Stephen Fry for many, many years, and now it's hosted by Sandy... How do you say your last name?
Toksvig.
Toksvig. Say it again?
Toksvig.
Toksvig.
Nope.
Toksvig.
Svig.
Toksvig.
Yes.
Okay, that was not what Austin was saying at all.
Call her Sandy on the show. They don't ever say her full name. Like, actually, I think I always do for Stephen Fry.
It's true.
But...
Well, he has one of those names that you have to say.
You really do.
It's a movie star name.
I've seen it in movies. But quite interesting is a show that has lasted for many seasons now. The premise is actually quite simple. It has the host who is going to present a series of questions of very fascinating trivia that is always almost impossible to know. So the point of the show is not to kind of guess correctly what are the answers to these really impossible questions, but to learn from them. And any additional points you get throughout the show are about additional facts or stories, or in later seasons, just really well-developed jokes that are entertaining or quite interesting. The show is very fun. You always kind of learn while watching it because it is just a variety of topics or to debunk general ignorance, as the whole section is about. And the show is delightfully mocking because if you give an answer that's the obvious wrong answer or the answer that everyone thinks is correct but is wrong, the sirens blare and you are shamed and you lose points for it. Every season and every episode has had the comedian Alan Davies as the stooge of sorts of every episode, who typically loses, usually around, gets negative like 40, 70 points and such. And the rest of the panel are rotating comedians. Some have been on many, many times, some who are up-and-coming comedians. I watched seasons 1 through 4, which every season is a letter of topic.
And what letter are we on now?
P just started this week.
So that's season 16 then. That's
yes.
A lot of seasons.
So I watched A through D, and I'm almost done with O because I wanted to see Sandy as a host as well. So I watched about 50 episodes, but Lee has seen way more than that. Lee, talk about your relationship with QI.
So I have OCD, and every night before I go to bed, I have to watch or listen to something, and I get in these ruts and these habits where I just watch and listen to the same thing over and over again. QI was that show for me for about 6 years. So I have seen, and I picked up the show when, Series F, I think, had just aired.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been with the show for a while, and I watched Series A through J. I've seen each episode of A through J at least once, and then A through G probably a rough estimate would be 50 times.
So unfortunately, you hate the show.
Right. I love this show so much. It's so good, and it's honestly one of my favorite shows, and I started listening to the podcast No Such Thing as a Fish, which is the researchers for QI talking about fun facts that they can't show on the TV show for whatever reason, or they didn't have time or didn't fit or whatever. So,
which I started listening to this week, and is as delightful as I thought it was going to be.
It's so good.
So what makes this so essential comfort viewing for you, Lee?
It does, like, two of my favorite things at the same time. It teaches me things, and it makes me laugh. Because the researchers on the show, they will go back and correct themselves, like, from previous seasons and things like that. There is a fantastic plot line with Dara O'Brien, who, on, like, season 2, said I didn't even remember what it's called, but it's where water is...
Yes,
all three.
I've seen them correct him once now about this, like a literal year later. And it was like, what degree does water exist in all three forms?
Yeah, that's it.
And he said 0 back on like season 2. And then they like updated him on season D, made him lose points for answering the same question. Like it's actually like 0.56 now.
Yeah, it's like 0.01 or something ridiculous. And he got so mad because they corrected him a year later on a different episode on a different season.
Very good.
So good. So, like, the researchers do really care about the information that they share, and they go to the same efforts on the podcast, which I also really like, but it also has really funny comedians on it. Like, that's how I fell in love with Phil Jupitus. He's fantastic on the show. It's where I fell in love with Mitchell.
David Mitchell.
What's his name? Yeah, David Mitchell. Love David Mitchell. And when he gets angry, like, in later seasons, Stephen Fry, like, purposefully will antagonize him just so that he gets angry, and it's fantastic.
David Mitchell is awesome because much like his character on Peep Show, and actually a bit as him as William Shakespeare, he clearly is, like, very, very well read. He is a major history guy, in addition to being a sarcastic comedian.
Yes.
So, whereas most people who are on there regularly, like Bill Bailey, who I adore from Black Books and many other things, Phil Jupitus is amazing. Rich Hall, who is someone I'd never heard of before, but
so good.
The most brilliant, deadpan, sarcastic American comedian who's always on there. David Mitchell, he doesn't care about the score, but he definitely cares about the information more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when they fool him, they take extra delight as opposed to fooling Alan Davies, which is once every 3 minutes.
Right.
It's so good.
And yeah, it is so easy to watch so much of as well, because there's something about a quiz show with no actual, like, stress in watching it. I mean, I'm not someone who actually gets, like, anxiety watching, I don't know, Amazing Race or even Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. But the fact that there is no actual, like, stakes or competition.
Yeah, it's much more, and it's just much more pleasant. I mean, it's sort of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the points are made up and the scores are made up and the points don't matter. I mean, in fact, it reminds me in that way a lot like that. And that, like, at the end, there's like a reading of points, and you're like, I don't really remember where those came from, but I don't care.
I watched an episode in the most recent season, O, and one guy, I forget his name, said, I've been on this show like 6-7 times. I have no idea how the point system works.
Right.
Everyone just kind of shrugs. Like,
They've gone into it before, like in one of the behind the scenes things, because again, I'm obsessed with this show. One of the behind the scenes things, they actually kind of break down the scoring system, and they do have a literal scoring system.
Of course they do. They're nerds.
It's super complex.
Let's get into the hosts. Leon, I'll have you take on this a little bit. What makes Stephen Fry such an amazing host for this show?
Stephen Fry is one of those types of people that even if he is berating you and insulting you with everything he can muster, he's still pleasant to listen to. And he's still fascinating to listen to. And it's gotten him into trouble a couple of times on the show where, like, he said something and it's like, oh, that's not true. I'm just making that up.
Right.
But you believe it because it's Stephen Fry.
Right.
I mean, he's considered like one of the most scholarly comedians out there, right? He has so many novels he's written. He is like a complete expert on Oscar Wilde. So,
and then he'll say things like, I've been to prison. And it's like, oh shit, you have.
He has? For what?
Yeah. It was something minor, and it was like for 6 months or something, but yeah.
6 months
I don't remember what it was.
Time. Jeez.
I did not know that.
Now I want to find that out immediately.
You would have got a point for QI for that.
Seriously.
I
They
really
should definitely, oh man, when they get to S, can they please just do an episode called Stephen Fry?
Oh, I hope they do.
That would
so good.
be the best thing.
That would be really fun. I am worried. I think you actually like prove this. I'm worried he stepped down because he's sick.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting up there.
He confirmed that he had some sort of cancer recently.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, it's terrible. Because he was on the show until his final season was M. So Sandy has had it now for N and O, which are complete seasons, and P, which has started this week.
I really like Sandy. I think Sandy's a delight.
Too.
I think like I love Stephen Fry, but like she brings a totally different feel to it that is also lovely. I don't know. It works.
They both have a wonderful sense of glee and messing with the contestants. Like they're both people who are very interested in knowledge and trivia and kind of how the world works, while also very happy to put people in what they call the QI honey traps. Which and Sandy always feels more like a energetic but possibly evil den mother. Which I really enjoyed that aspect, whereas Stephen Fry is very much your colleague who has put tacks in your chair when you are up at work. Mm-hmm. They are both so much fun, and I think it says a lot about Sandy as a host that, passing the guard happens on so many shows. I think a recent example would be The Daily Show. Lots of people are fans of Trevor Noah, but there's still the legacy of Jon Stewart. It would have been very easy for so many guests, including Alan Davies, to just not be on Sandy's show. Okay, it's your own thing. But the fact that I see you got Phil Jupitus and Rich Hall, all people will kind of keep coming back because she has maintained the joy of the show and still made it essential viewing. Now that it's 16 seasons in, which is bonkers. I'm a fan of hers, and the show's just so good. Are there any more great guests we haven't talked about?
Graham Norton's on an episode or two, and he's fantastic, as always. Daniel Radcliffe is on an episode. He's on a Christmas episode.
Nice.
Where they talk about, I believe it was in Series H, and the theme was Hocus Pocus. It was fantastic. Daniel Radcliffe also got a rule about Quidditch wrong in that episode.
Wait, I want to watch that one now. I really want to watch that one. That's really important to me. I know the rules of Quidditch really well.
One of my favorite guests is also the host of a number of very sarcastic game shows, Jimmy Carr.
Oh, I love Jimmy Carr.
I adore Big Fat Quiz Show of the Year. He does 8 out of 10 Cats Do Countdown. He is the best, because I always believe game show hosts should be, a good 30% evil. I don't like this whole Pat Sajak, I'm on your side kind of thing. No,
that's boring.
I want you to mess with the people in order for them to get their money. And Jimmy Carr is, the devil in a fancy suit. And to have him be a contestant, he still kind of plays that same type of, very precise, witty, slightly evil thing going on here.
So I did, by the way, just find out some important facts about our friend Stephen Fry.
Mm-hmm.
His reason for going to prison is really boring. He stole a family friend's credit card when he stole their coat, and then discovered the credit card in the pocket and started spending it on stuff. And he spent 3 months in prison, and his mom sent him the crossword puzzle every day.
That's the most Stephen Fry thing.
Isn't it the most Stephen Fry thing?
So Stephen Fry.
And he is okay. He had prostate cancer, a very aggressive form of prostate cancer. He had surgery earlier this year, and he is recovering, and cancer is gone. So early intervention saved his life. He's okay. But it is very likely that I imagine that may have curtailed some of his media appearances in general. But yes, it sounds like he's okay.
So I had seen QI very, briefly, I think maybe in, our mutual friend Denny loved it and showed me a few episodes, but I didn't really retain a lot. Honestly, I watched 50 episodes here. Sarah, this is your first time watching it.
Yeah, I've never seen it before. I love it. It's really sweet. I can't say that it is a little British for me, in that it is a
TV show called Quite Interesting.
No, well, and here's the thing. I really like we watch some of the zanier British panel shows that are just wall-to-wall comedy, and those are a little bit more engaging for me. I love QI. I mean, it's fun. It's particularly fun once I realized that they really do have a good research team, so the crazy stuff they say is all very much true, and they correct themselves when they're wrong, which, I care whether my quiz shows are correct. But definitely there are times when they go on a tangent or they're talking about something and they really don't seem to make an effort to, punctuate their points or make sense or not ramble, which can get a little annoying. But ultimately, it's a really fun, very light thing to have on in background, to have on sort of, I can't imagine myself, watching every episode, eyes peeled open, but it's lots of fun. The episodes are different depending on who the guests are. Some of the guests are better than others. But mostly,
that's definitely true.
I love it. I mean, every episode I've watched, I've thought, that's a really interesting thing. Alan is consistently funny, and I don't know why the same joke works every time, but man, him getting things wrong is funny every single friggin' time.
I think it's because it doesn't actually, really affect him.
Yes.
It would be not funny if he was, annoyed that he kept losing.
Right, no.
Or that the bell keep, ringing on him. But he just has a good time, and he enjoys learning new things.
Yeah, no, he's lovely. And he's the mainstay of the show, and he's a great mainstay of the show. He and Stephen Fry have such a great chemistry. Yeah, it's great. It's weird, I almost feel like in America this would never be a TV show.
They tried and failed.
Yeah, but it would be a podcast, or it would be we have things on NPR. Wait, Don't Tell Me isn't quite the same thing, but has a similar kind of feel to it. Mm-hmm. And I could see a trivia-based show working in America in that way, but we would never have a television show like this.
Well, aside from At Midnight, which now we look at a different lens because Chris Hardwick's a monster person, we just struggle with American game shows to actually get celebrities to be on them without having, get their prizes for charity. Or
Right. It's just not how we do things. And then we do, something like Jeopardy! Jeopardy is one of the great game shows of all time. Jeopardy's super fun, but it's just a very, very different thing, and it's actively competitive. I think, Wait is probably the only comparison I can think of where we're really trying for this format at all. Mm-hmm. And I love Wait, Don't Tell Me. But it's nice to know that across the pond there's a whole world of these kinds of media experiences, and QI is a lot of fun.
I'm not the only one who said this, but if there would be an American version, it must be hosted by John Hodgman.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. He's on an episode.
Although, as much as I love John Hodgman, the thing about Stephen Fry that is different than John Hodgman is that John Hodgman has just a little bit of an extra edge of you thinking that maybe he actually doesn't like you. That Stephen Fry, it's a very, very slight, grade of the same kind of comedy. I love Judge John Hodgman, the podcast. But, part of his shtick is that maybe he actually thinks you're an idiot. And Stephen Fry, never does. It's never the way he is.
John Hodgman is, the uncle who doesn't like you, but has to be nice to you because you're his niece. Whereas Stephen Fry is the uncle who likes you even though you are a big dum-dum.
Right, and who likes you but feels that he must pretend that he does not like you for propriety's sake. And I think but that's also an American and British thing. I think that there's a lack of edge to this show that I don't think Americans could make.
It's so weird. I watch so many British shows, and in so many shows as just an adjective and a compliment. I always hear the word clever being used more in British sitcoms and drama.
This is true.
As just a really strong attribute for a person. We don't get that enough in America. It's kind of weird to have shows that are just truly based on the joy of information. And yeah, I think this show, every American I know who's seen it loves it.
Right, yeah.
It's one of those shows that, like, I keep telling people to watch and nobody does, and then when they finally do, they go, oh my god, it's so great. It's like, I know, that's why I've been trying to get you to watch it!
But to be the slightly more American, it is, look, I mean, it is a different kind of TV watching experience. It is a very leisurely little 30-minute, wander through the world of facts. It doesn't have a lot of forward momentum, but it's a lot of fun.
I think later seasons really kind of make it a bit more dynamic. You get more toys for them to play with.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I think you're right. That as it goes on, it gets just a little bit more complicated and theatrical. That's excellent. Yeah, but it's a great show. I love it a lot.
If you like Great British Bake Off,
yes, if you like Great British Bake Off, you will love this show.
Yep.
Lee, do you have any final? I want to give you the final word because you've seen so many more episodes. Are there any more great guests, great moments? Anything else you want to say now about one of your favorite shows?
It's a show that even though I've seen many episodes more times than any sane person should, I can still sit down and watch any of those episodes and find or learn something new or something I didn't retain before. And it's always interesting. It's always neat. It's always fun. And I always feel better after I watch the show, whether it's just because I'm happier because I've laughed a lot or if I've learned something or both. Like, it's just a good show.
And the answer is never the blue whale.
Yes.
Never the blue whale.
You're on the show.
Wait, have you seen, is it ever the blue whale?
Yes.
That's very exciting.
In season F, they do an episode where Stephen Fry starts off the episode in French because it's all about France.
Good.
And he asks Alan the French equivalent of what is an animal that can't swallow anything bigger than a grapefruit?
And the answer is a blue whale. But he doesn't speak French, so he can't get it.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Yep. Very good. Very good. Very good.
There was one episode I saw where they were just so clearly angry at the idea of who wants to be a millionaire. They just openly mocked it the entire episode. it knows how to mess with this format a lot, and I really enjoy that. But now it's time for henges. I'm going to give this a 4.5. I know it says for all shows, but I'm going to catch up with this one completely. It is just the most relaxing way to start your day or finish your day.
I'll give it a 4. I think it's great.
I will give it a 5. It's one of my favorite shows of all time.
If you didn't give it a 5, I was going to call you out.
It's but you watched it all.
If you couldn't give this a 5, there's no way you could ever give anything a 5. But
yeah, that's fair.
Anywho, QI, the last couple seasons are on BritBox and elsewhere on the internet. Before we wrap up, I just kind of remembered that I did finish a show of the 128 plus shows we've covered. Back on episode 4, we reviewed, rather awkwardly, a German sitcom called Turkish for Beginners. Pedro and I tried to review that without subtitles, to mixed effect. And then later on throughout this podcast run, more seasons have appeared on a streaming site called MHZ Choice. And I've now finished the series, and it remains a very recommendable, very odd, very ambitious show about a family that is being combined with a German hippie mother and her daughter, plus her new Turkish boyfriend and their 2 kids, and kind of cultures combining. I think it's a really kind of great look at, different cultures and very, very broad sitcom concepts, and also weirdly having a major and believable romance between who are about to be step-siblings. The show did not necessarily end well. The last 3 episodes really kind of broke its format of embracing everyone's different ideas and to be really, really weirdly anti-abortion, and kind of derailed everyone's plot lines with that. So aside from the last 3 episodes, it is a very fascinating, odd, one-of-a-kind sitcom with great performances. that I recommend. And my final review for it will just be a 4.2. So I did finish the show, and also I'm going to vow now, on recording, I have 2 episodes left of Parenthood, a show I started to review back in episode 12 or so. Sarah, we're going to finish the next 2 episodes of Parenthood before the next podcast.
It could happen.
It is definitely going to happen.
Maybe.
I vow this.
Maybe.
So get excited for that wrap-up review as well. Definitely going to happen. Just an hour and a half left of the show. Very easy to do.
Maybe.
Good show we both like. It's gonna
There's too
happen.
many feelings.
This I vow. Anywho, we'll be back next week we're going to cover the 158th entry in all of these things. And the movie for that week is the Western The Oxbow Incident.
The food is frisee. It's a kind of lettuce.
The album is Kick Out the Jams by MC5.
Nice.
The song is Dancing in the Streets, but we're not going to cover that until Pedro gets back. And the TV show is one of the true American classics, The Mary Tyler Moore Show. So get excited for that to be back on the show next Thursday. Until then, you can go to theartofmortal.com, leave a thought on this episode and other episodes by going to the comments section. While you're there, check out some other spiffy podcasts, including Let's Take 5, the podcast I do with Eric Martindale, where we take a cinema legend and highlight their films. And this week we're starting the John Ford 5, and we're going to be covering the classic Stagecoach that comes out tomorrow. Also, Ad Absurdum, wonderful podcast, hosted by our very own Sarah.
Me.
Where 2 lawyers talk about the real-life implications of pop culture.
Occasionally. Currently, it's Escape from New York. Who knows? Things could change.
Meaning there'll be another episode.
Perhaps, yes.
We're not going to delete the Escape from New York episode.
The Escape from New York episode's a lot of fun.
You want to recommend an old episode?
Yeah. It's almost, let's see, you put me on the spot. Truman Show's fun, though.
Truman Show. If you want to know exactly what Truman can and can't sue for after having lived through the Truman Show.
They owe a lot of money. Like, a lot of money.
Very fun episode. Also, special thanks, of course, to Adam Lord for all the music that happens on this show, and really all of our shows. We'll be back next week. Follow us on Twitter at The Immortals Pod. Leave a review on iTunes. Yeah, you all get it. Anywho, I'm Austin.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Lee.
We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I'm gonna go then! And I don't need any of this! I don't need this stuff! And I don't need you! I don't need anything! Except this. This ashtray, and that's the only thing I need is this! I don't need this or this! This ashtray! And this paddle game! The ashtray and the paddle game, and that's all I need! And this remote control. The ashtray and the paddle game and the remote control, and that's all I need. And these matches. The ashtray and these matches and the remote control and the paddle ball. And this lamp. The ashtray. This paddle game and the remote control. And the lamp, and that's all I need.